Manufacturing custom products is like 1,000 times harder than I think it looks. I get a lot of comments whenever there are misprinted products or imperfect products that I offer to my customers. Comments like, why does this keep happening? Like, I don't believe this is real. I think it's staged. Or like, I'm making a big deal out of something that isn't a problem. People will just be like, how does this keep happening? This business in particular is just ripe for misprints. It's like emotionally taxing when I post about it online, trying to be transparent and honest, and then people accuse me of lying, which is so insane because obviously I would love for things to go perfect. But all of that said, if this happens to you in your business, I have some things, some advice, some hard-won thoughts of what to do about it. In my business versus, like, let's just say a hypothetical other business, like let's say a business that makes phone chargers or something. My business is different because I am trying to make several different products out of many different materials, whether it be paper products, things on plastic, things printed on wood. There's lots of different materials, lots of different printing methods in lots of different patterns that I'm trying to match the colors to be consistent across all of those materials and printing methods. So color matching is a huge part of my business. And if I sold, for example, a phone charger, that is not a thing. Also, like I said, I have all these different materials. I have like 50 different product types, not even including the different patterns, like 16 to 30 something patterns in each product. And so making sure that all of these individual products are correct and each one presents its own challenge is very, very hard. Versus, again, if I were selling like tech accessories or something, it's like maybe you have like 1 to 10 different types of products and I have like 50 different product categories. So across all of my products, I have like grocery planners that have magnets on the back and are made of cardboard and paper. I have Kindle cases and iPad cases that are made of plastic on the back and like a different type of plastic on the front that have magnets in the front so that they auto-wake your Kindle. Or I have wooden trays that are made of mango wood that have like a printed insert under them that are then sealed with acrylic, like poured acrylic. I have desk mats that are made of neoprene on the top and natural rubber on the bottom. So there's like hundreds of different materials and different components that go into all of my products. I try to sort of like streamline it and see if I can make, like, for example, all of my pouches made of the same type of fabric, or my like satin scrunchies and my satin keychains are obviously made of the same satin printed fabric, or my mushroom leather items are all made of the same mushroom leather. I'm trying to kind of bring that all together. I'm trying to uniformly create products of the same materials as much as possible. But yeah, the nature of my business, because it's about my artwork and putting my artwork on different products so that you can have like matching sets of things, that makes misprints extremely likely. Because not only could I get a product that's made incorrectly, like my iPad cases where they don't have an auto wake feature when they should, but also I could have a product printed with the wrong colors, which also my iPad cases are a good example of, because the colors do not match other products made by that manufacturer or the other products that I stock from other manufacturers. So this business in particular is just ripe for misprints, and it does continually happen. I have so many products and so many deliveries each year that like it's bound to be, 1 to 3% of them go wrong in some way, when there's about 10 ways that could go wrong each time. So whatever size small business you have, I hopefully can offer a couple of tips from my extensive experience with misprints of ways that you can possibly try to make it as right as possible, since I've kind of learned the hard way over and over again. The very first thing to do is make sure that you can get kind of a report of the issue to the manufacturer within like ideally like 7 days of delivery, which can be really, really hard. The thing that like has started to work well for us is just alerting the manufacturer right away there's something wrong and then promising that you will get a report as soon as possible. Obviously, you want to check every single unit individually to make sure that they're all incorrect, because if there's something like if there's damage from shipment, that's probably not going to affect every unit. If there's like a misprinted color, probably will affect every unit. But I've definitely had like times where we checked like some of the items and I was like, oh yeah, all the colors are wrong. And then we find other ones and it's not that the colors are right, it's just that there's even like worse printing issues with it, like gaps of like white space or like colors that are completely totally worse than like the few that we checked. So giving like that thorough report to a manufacturer ASAP is going to be really important. I have had manufacturers tell us like, oh, this was delivered over a month ago. Like you can't just be like bringing this to me now. And it's like, well, we've been trying our best, but you have to understand we're very busy. We have a lot of deliveries. So just letting them know right away that there's an issue is super important, because that brings me to my second point, which is generally the best way to go with this is try to negotiate a resolution with the manufacturer. Because like if you just burn the bridge and say like we're just taking our business elsewhere right away or something like that, like you're not gonna get a lot out of that because the manufacturer already knows you're lost. So at this point they would rather just keep the money you've already paid them and not try to work with you. But also switching manufacturers is really costly from a time perspective and a money perspective. So I generally don't let like a misprint burn the bridge right away, especially if like they think it's our fault, which very rarely, considering that like we get a lot of correctly printed items. It's very frustrating when they will start out from that point of like, well, you sent us the wrong type of file. And it's like, these are the files we send everybody. But one thing you can also do to sort of get ahead of all this is if you have like color matching as an issue like we do, sending like a physical reference of what the correct colors look like can be really helpful. And then once you've done that, if they still deliver misprints, which has happened, believe it or not, it's really clearly on them. And that way you can really start from like a strong negotiating position, which is annoying to look at it from like a negotiating position when you know you're objectively right, but like also they know you're objectively right. And that's key in this situation. So negotiating with a manufacturer is a lot better than just moving on from them or, you know, bad mouthing them or something right away. Because oftentimes manufacturers, especially if you are like an important customer to them, and if you're nice, they want to help you and they want to make it right because they want your future business. So some of the things that I have done with manufacturers is getting replacements. If it's like a really bad misprint, getting replacements where they also pay for rushed production and shipping. If it's like a medium bad misprint, or if we contributed in some way, sometimes like we'll negotiate that we'll pay a chunk of the full price to get replacements. So 25, 50, 75% of the cost of replacements. Or sometimes kind of this is very rare, but they'll issue a refund occasionally. Manufacturers are also much more likely to give you a credit on future orders because obviously that means they're getting future orders from you. But since oftentimes I know I'm not going to switch a manufacturer if I think that the misprint issue can be solved, I will go ahead and accept like a credit on future orders. You also tend to get more money that way. It doesn't solve your issue, which can be really a problem for a small business of like, you currently have a bunch of stock that you can't sell for full price. It's not reflecting your brand the way you want it to be reflected, so that sucks. And you're out the money that you spent on it. That can be a huge weight on an inventory-based business where the money you spend on inventory needs to be earned back within a timely fashion, so you have that money to use on your next inventory and your payroll and your ongoing expenses that don't change. So that can be a huge, huge challenge. And also communicating that to manufacturers can be very helpful. Like, listen, I sent you $100,000 and now I don't have $100,000 to get like a correct product out of to actually be able to make money that can then pay my other bills that I also still have to pay. So it's really important not to underestimate how much your investment in a product that didn't turn out is actually very costly, like for the fact that it can't give you a return for a very long time. It's kind of like almost like giving a manufacturer an interest-free loan if they're not actually going to deliver you the product that you need to keep the business running. So I would say negotiating like a resolution that is fair considering all the factors. Another thing that you can bring up to them is obviously, like, this was more relevant before we moved into our larger warehouse, but incorrect product takes up a lot of space, and that is another resource that's very valuable. So bringing up that it's going to take you a long time to try to get through this misprinted product can be an important thing for them to understand. So consider all of the ways that the misprint is impacting your business in a negative way. Present that all to the manufacturer, and then hopefully you can come up with a resolution that includes either credit towards a future delivery or replacements. And also don't forget, like I said, that rush production and rush shipping is something to ask for as well, because the longer you wait to get the correct product, the kind of more of a drag on your business the investment that you initially put up that isn't making a return is going to be. So a lot to think about there, which means there's a lot of negotiating kind of lanes you can take. And being creative in a negotiation is always going to be important, because some manufacturers are in a better position than others to offer you different things. For some people, they may have a really good shipping situation worked out with a freight forwarder they work with. And so offering you air shipping is going to be less costly for them than it would be for you to pay for. And therefore, it makes sense for them to offer you that benefit that is very valuable to you and not as costly to them, just as an example. So negotiating that resolution is crucial. And then obviously the next step is figuring out what to do with the product. I tend to have very high standards for like correct printing on my products, because I do have customers that very much notice if our colors are not consistent across our different products, or if there's an issue with like the physical product itself. And I really don't want my brand to be looked at negatively by my repeat customers. Also, I have my wholesale customers who buy obviously like the same pattern item in different products. So if they're getting mismatched items, or if some of the products are not as high quality as they expect, that is obviously going to hurt their relationship with my business and make it less likely that they want to keep ordering from us in the future, which down the line, when you add it all up, if it's somebody who spends $5,000 a year, could cost you $20,000 in 4 years, or something that like maybe it doesn't sound like a big deal that they don't put in a $200 order this month, but in the long run, if they stop ordering from you, it can be a really big problem. So trying to have high standards that create expectations of quality with customers is really important to me. And therefore, I do label my imperfect product as misprinted or imperfect, so that people understand that this is not the quality that you can come to expect from my business. So being transparent about it is important to me, even though it is kind of embarrassing and people do start to make comments like, oh, this keeps happening to you, or I don't believe this is really a problem. But ultimately, that cost benefit is there for me, because I need my customers to understand that my products are held to a high standard if you're paying full price. Getting rid of the product, there's a lot of different options. I often use grab bags, which are my 3 times a year sale, where I put together a mystery bundle of products that are overstocked, discontinued, or otherwise imperfect. And so if I have any sort of issues with either a single unit of a product or an entire category, I try to put them in my grab bags. And then I offer a really big discount that's anywhere from like 50 to 75% off. And it's become really popular. So people do really enjoy getting a mystery package. And because it's kind of a mix of imperfect, overstocked, discontinued, they're not just getting a pile of stuff that is bad quality. Generally, my imperfect products are not bad quality. They're still usable. But kind of having that mix of like, oh, this is a perfectly fine product, or this is a product that like I can either repurpose because it's like imperfect in a way that I don't want to use it, or it's fine enough that it was worth it to me to get for 75% off. So I think that really works as an avenue for me. But also, I often do flash sales where I create a sale that is like such a deep discount that it does get rid of the inventory for me, usually within like a week of the sale. So it is like a deep discount. For example, my iPad cases were a big misprint, and so they're 50% off. Or my Kindle Oasis cases, I really wanted to get rid of because they were taking up space in the warehouse and weren't selling quickly enough at all. So they were $28 and we sold them for $5. Or like we had overstock laptop sleeves and tablet sleeves that are normally somewhere between like $25 and $32 and we sold them for $10. So that really tends to get rid of the product really quick, and that is helpful because then we get money back. It's usually not enough to make up for the amount of money that was invested into the product, but it gets kind of close, and we don't have to lose any more time of having it sit on our shelves and just have it be like a hole in our finances. And I think that's really valuable. If I kept all my misprinted products and let them sit for a long time trying to get full price, I would have to take out loans to buy new product, which then cost money because of interest. So being able to sort of monetize this inventory as soon as possible is worth it, even if it creates a loss. So that's sort of my calculation. It's going to be different for every business, and it depends like what kind of product it is and how important it is to the grand scheme of your product offerings. But for me, I do really value getting rid of things quickly. And so that's kind of the purpose of our flash sales. And just like how quickly you want to get rid of that item can also help determine the price. Like at a certain point, our warehouse was completely out of space and we had a bunch of wedding planners that weren't selling quickly enough. So we made them $1 because I just needed the space back. It really didn't matter if like the product was making a profit. It was just that we truly didn't have space in our 2,000 square foot warehouse before we moved. So yeah, it just depends on the situation, but highly recommend doing flash sales. It's also nice for your customers who maybe can't or don't want to invest as much in a product, and it makes your brand more accessible to them. So normally I will charge $16 for a notebook. That is a lot higher price than you would get at Target for, you know, a notebook that does the same job, even though it's lower quality and not as cute, in my opinion. But if you do a flash sale because there was something slightly imperfect, then your customer can enjoy, you know, probably 80 to 90% of your normal quality and like 80 to 90% of your normal cuteness, which is still better than the thing they could get at Target, but then they get it for a similar price. So I see that as a big benefit to reaching customers that you may not have otherwise reached. So customers are happy. Crucially, don't have to throw something away when it's still usable, because I hate to do that. It feels extremely wasteful. I know there's a lot of big businesses out there that if they get a misprint, which they do, they just don't put it on social media like I do, they will throw stuff away. So they're literally throwing away like 30,000 pounds of goods when it's still usable, but just because it's not quite right. And I would hate to do that. Obviously, I'm not on the same scale as them, but I don't want to create any waste if possible, especially because a lot of my products are very functional, like notebooks, for example, so they can obviously be used even if they aren't printed quite right. So I see that as the best of both worlds compromise, where my customers get a benefit. I'm not throwing anything away. I do get some money back for it. I get my space back from my warehouse as soon as possible. And that just seems like the best sort of outcome for everybody. I'm not gonna lie, it like is not good for the business to have misprints, even if you can get rid of them, because obviously it takes up a ton of time. You have to take the time to pack the orders. So if I were to just throw stuff away, like that would probably be more convenient in a lot of ways. So like I would say in general, we do not come out ahead in these misprint situations, but there are ways to make it as right as possible without obviously like throwing stuff away or burning bridges with manufacturers in like a way that's going to be even more of a headache for you to find a new manufacturer and go through the sampling process again. So it's a very complicated sort of issue when you have either like a incorrectly made product or a misprinted product. And it's kind of just something that you have to understand as a part of the manufacturing process and accept and just try to mitigate the downsides as much as possible, even though it's never probably going to be quite right as if the product was made correctly. So hopefully that was some helpful advice. If you guys have any other suggestions, if someone's been through something similar, please leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching till the end.